Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, I'm Amy Quick. We might be distracted by some League of Legends setup that I'm trying to help my son with. So anyways, I work for IntelliMagic. I'm a BDE there. I sell IT operations analytics for IT infrastructure. So essentially like a check engine light for your car and a code reader all in one for big badass data centers. So that's a little about what I do now. My history, I've kind of run the full gamut of sales. I've been an SDR, I've been an inside sales rep, account executive, strategic level sales, and now I'm currently doing enterprise sales. So I've done short deal cycles, long deal cycles, and kind of everything in between. So really excited to join you all this morning.
Awesome. Brooke.
Hey, I'm Brooke Bains. Today I am creating a lifestyle brand for women business travelers. I know that sounds odd because we have not flown in a while, but we will. It is my passion because I have been in some form of go-to-market since I was 22. Started out as an investment banker, worked my way into building a healthcare consulting company and then Silicon Valley tech. And so I've led large and small sales organizations across account management and project delivery, professional service delivery, and account executives, enterprise sales, small to medium-sized sales. So I've had a really fantastic, crazy career, and it forced me to travel a lot, which is my inspiration for serving women when you're out there doing the good work that you do. So I'm super excited to be here, and thank you for making this possible.
Awesome. Patrick.
Hi guys, Patrick Lee. Thanks so much for letting me join. I'm the sales operations lead over at a company called RiskLens, also the de facto enablement manager because no one else can do it. Our company sells cyber risk management software to the Fortune 1000, basically quantifies cyber risk into dollars and cents. That kind of took the traditional route to where I am. Started as an SDR, actually for an 8-person startup, got promoted to account executive there, moved to another company for mid-markets, then did enterprise sales for RiskLens for about a year before I transitioned into sales operations. And yeah, so just excited to hear, obviously, Christina's pitch and everyone's feedback. Just hope to learn more as we go. So thank you.
Awesome. Michael, my friend.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Gagliano from Toronto, and I'm our head of SMB sales at a company called #Paid. We're an influencer marketing SaaS platform. Before this, I was a manager of SMB and enterprise sales at Shutterstock. I was at a startup that got acquired by Shutterstock, and so that was my first acquisition where I got promoted there from enterprise AE. And then before that was at another startup called Uberflip, where I started my career several years before as an SDR. I love that trend that we're seeing from the intros, a lot of people starting as an SDR. And I'm passionate, even though I'm managing AEs, I'm super passionate about sales development and SDRs, which you'll see from my content. So I'm mostly a coach, sales coach at my companies. So I'm pumped to give you some ideas, some feedback, and hopefully you'll learn at least one thing from me, Christina.
Awesome. Allan, you're up, my friend. You're on mute.
I'm on mute, the classic mute Zoom. So my name is Allan Ramsay. I'm the sales manager at Verse.io. We basically help businesses with their lead engagement. So when a lead hits their CRM, we can instantly engage them with text, phone calls, and emails within 5 minutes to help the team streamline basically the lead to appointment ratio that they have. Prior to this, I was at Tesla doing sales operations for energy and was a director of sales at Yelp.
Awesome. Christina. Oh, I guess I should say a little bit about myself before Christina takes the floor. I'm Francois. Amy and myself and Patrick got this going in February. I sell mid-market enterprise European solutions for a Microsoft partner called Encore. I've been doing that for about 10 years. And I never started as an SDR. I started as like a help desk jockey, man. I was picking up phones and doing support requests, and I was like the IT nerd guy. So I made it to the dark side, and I like it over here. And but now, Christina, the floor is yours. Tell us about your product. Tell us, and make sure you tell us like what you want. I know you told us in the email, but
yes.
If it's interactive, wait till the end. If you want us to wear personas, all that good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. So firstly, thank you all for inviting me or letting me come and speak to you today. I am not a salesperson at all by background. I was recalling my sales career, so to speak, and the only time I successfully, I guess, sold something was when I was the president of the Wine and Whiskey Society at university. And I managed to convince lots of people to sign up to my society by giving them free wine for the small membership fee of $6. So that was cool. That worked really well. But since then, I transitioned into a career as a data scientist. And needless to say, I kind of miss having the computer as my best friend, where there's a nice level of anonymity where you can do something and everything is great and it's behind screens. But now, of course, as the founder of a company, that role is very much shifting. So unlike all of you experts, I do not have a lot of sales expertise, and I need to learn. And there's a lot of things that make me a little bit uncomfortable. So basically what I'm after today is is the sales pitch good at all in any way? Are you excited? Are you not? If not, please destroy me with your feedback. I really do like constructive feedback. If I go away crying from this, that's going to be great. And last but not least, basically what I would love from this session is to kind of pretend that I'm selling my product to you guys. What is my product? Lemons is a platform that's all about merit-based hiring. I would love you guys to put yourselves into the position of being the hiring managers at a small startup where, even though it's COVID, you actually have a marketing hire out on the open. It's going to be your first marketing hire, so you definitely really, really feel like you can't really make a mistake. And we've kind of connected, and I think that my solution is really good for you. So today I'd just like to talk about what my product is, go through all that, hopefully show you a demo, and really figure out, I guess, a little bit more about you guys, your company, and what you're trying to hire. So that's I guess what it is. Yeah.
Do you actually want to maybe do a conversation, like pick someone like Michael or Allan and like actually have kind of a full conversation, and that way you're not.
Oh.
Yeah, that works a little easier because you could just focus on one person being like your customer, and then the rest of us can just, give feedback. And do you want us to give feedback as you go, or would you like to kind of get through like a pitch first and then we can circle around and do feedback after?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in general, I prefer to get feedback at the end, just because then that way it can all come at once. I don't have a pitch deck, so to speak, but I have a couple of slides that I just like to go through. So yeah, I guess I'd like to kind of style it as like a conversation that I think will take at most 15 minutes. And then maybe we can spend the rest of the time on feedback if that works.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Michael, you're
so yeah, you offered up, Michael. So yeah, okay. Michael, let's do this.
Rock and roll. I've had 3 coffees. I'm ready.
Nice. So are you still hiring for marketing at Shutterstock? Is that the one that we're going to go for?
I'll use my current company, #paid. Yeah, we're actually looking for a demand gen marketer right now.
Oh, wow, that couldn't be perfect. So hi, Michael. How are you? How are you doing today?
Doing well, thank you. How about yourself?
Not too bad. I'm very excited. I'll finally get to go running today, which is always very exciting for me. It's like the highlight of my week now during Corona is actually doing like exercise.
I know what you mean. I'm trying to get outside too. Good for you.
Nice. Whereabouts are you based?
I'm in Toronto.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow. Is it cold there?
I always get asked that. It's
probably a stupid question, isn't it?
Oh, it's a little bit colder than New York City most times of the year.
Huh. Okay. So actually not that bad. So Michael, I hear that you're hiring for a lead generation role. Is that still the case?
Yeah, a demand gen manager. So he or she will report directly to our VP of marketing. I work with our VP of marketing. I lead our sales team. And this demand gen marketer will own everything from email marketing, marketing automation, our lead funnel, basically driving leads for our sales team.
That's really awesome. It's really cool that you're actually still hiring in spite of everything that's going on. I guess that means business is going well.
Yeah, we're working on different ideas, and we see this as a really important role. So we haven't been too heavily affected because we sell to e-commerce brands, and e-commerce is doing really well.
So you said that it's a very important role. So why do you think, what's so important about this role?
I think that, so from the sales team perspective, we've got a few SDRs, we have a few account executives, and most of our pipeline, most of our new opportunities have come from inbound. And so we have the team right now focusing on outbound because we don't have a full-time demand gen person. Hiring this demand gen marketer will allow us to ramp up inbound, do more marketing programs, more content programs, and scale up the inbound leads that we are getting. We just don't have anyone focused on it because the VP of marketing is doing 100 different things. And so really it's totally untapped. We're not doing any email marketing. We've got thousands of contacts in Salesforce just sitting there. And so I think there's an opportunity to generate inbound leads for our sales team to build pipeline.
That's interesting. And so what would be the cost of not making this hire?
I think that we would probably continue to go down a focus of outbound. We've been testing a lot for the last 60 days. We're starting to see some improvements, but I think there could be a high opportunity cost if we only rely on outbound, where that might deliver a third of what our sales team actually needs to be delivering.
Cool. And so what's your interview process like actually today? Like, how do you find the people in your org?
Well, we have a head of talent. She just resigned. And so we're in a tough spot where we don't have a full-time recruiter. Now, essentially, we're going to be in a position where my VP of marketing, he needs to spend some of his time every week sourcing candidates. So we use LinkedIn, we use our website. I think we could do a lot more with our employer brand. It's pretty underinvested in, but we're going to be pretty limited with hiring resources.
Yeah, actually, from a lot of employers that I've spoken to that are kind of in a similar field to yours, they complained about two things. One is the quality of candidates, and the second is kind of the time it takes to hire somebody. Would you agree? Are those kind of the biggest pain points that you feel on that side?
I think so. Yeah, we get a lot of inbound applicants on our website. Most of them are not the right profile. Most of them think they're a good fit. They have 1 year, they have 2 years of experience. More importantly, though, they lack the depth of skills to do this role well.
That's interesting. When you say depth of skills, what do you mean? Let's talk about that.
Sure. Good question. I think the ability to, I think a proven track record of success building demand gen programs. So scaling up an inbound engine from the ground up, building out email marketing, lead scoring, marketing automation, and having done that at least one, preferably 2 companies before. So most people that are applying haven't done that. They've done some marketing manager work, but we really need somebody who's very revenue focused from a marketing perspective.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's really interesting because in my perspective, I'm a data scientist, so I think marketing is really interesting because I actually find that marketing has become really data driven. And I find that what's interesting about the market now is a lot of candidates that have marketing on their resume might not actually be the right fit marketers because the way that you do marketing now has changed so much. So I really like that. I like the fact that, yeah, sorry, go for it.
No. What does your product do?
Well, that's a lot of the things you talked about kind of really go very strongly in line with what we at Lemons do. Lemons is all about skill-based assessments. And the whole idea, actually what I wanted to show you something before, but maybe that's actually not necessary now, but let's go back to it. We're all about hiring the work and not the resume. So at Lemons, we believe that there's people that are really good at a marketing role, but there's other factors that prevent them from actually getting into the interview process. Things like, their resume that might not look that great. And for example, I'll just share my screen really quickly. I got it here. So in the case that you're talking about, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So, oh, no, that's not what I wanted to do. Wrong one. There we go. There. So we have candidates that kind of are on our platform, and we would love to kind of, we match those to employers just like yourself. So of the kind of 2 candidates that we have around, based on the things that you were talking about, there's these 2 candidates profiles that we have. Which ones do you think that you'd be more interested in interviewing? One of them is kind of your Ivy League marketer, 11 years in industry experience, and they've actually even worked on the Game of Thrones. And then we've got the second profile, which is top 200 college, 5 years industry experience, and got like really good experience working in marketing at a media website. Of these 2 candidates, which ones do you think kind of sound more attractive?
I mean, for the role that we're looking for, probably the one on the right, because we don't need, someone with necessarily over 10 years of experience, because we have our VP of marketing. I'm curious why Game of Thrones is on here. Why is that important?
I thought that was really cool. I mean, you're talking about demand generation, right? And like,
Yeah.
what's better than the TV show that dragged the most people to actually go and watch it than Game of Thrones, right?
I see. Cool.
That's a good play. But you know what? I think that this means that we're even more aligned than I thought before, because what Lemons does is we actually host marketing challenges. So when we talk about hiring in our process, we don't actually go through an interview process. Instead, what we do is we organize a challenge whereby our candidates complete an actual marketing challenge. You talked about lead generation. For these 2 candidates and for our first client, what we did is we literally got all of the candidates to make a lead generation creative. But we didn't just make them submit it and then evaluate it again subjectively, being like, oh, this is better than that. We actually host those creatives lives. We push them out on behalf of the client so that real customers react. And your hunch was actually right. So the person with more years of experience, the one that on their resume maybe doesn't look like the most outstanding candidate, they got around 3,000 views and a 0.03% click-through rate. On the other hand, that second candidate, they drove 164,000 people to the website. And actually for that client, they actually created a bump in revenue. And what's really, really beautiful about this system is that we managed to avoid a lot of the bias that comes in the interview process, because what the employer basically sees is the results of your work. What you talked about, you said recruiting takes time, you don't want to make a bad hire, and you don't get quality applicants. Our process allows you to see how good a candidate is because you actually get their work. And some of the questions that we get from employers is, okay, fine, but what about if this is just a one-off? We pick our candidates based on 2 criteria. One is that they've demonstrated grit, but 2, when they actually submit the work, the creative, they also put together a one-pager that really talks about why they chose to create that ad. So in that way, what you discover is how they think, which I think for me is the most important thing in a hire. You get, can they do the job? Yes, no. And then B, how do they think? How are they going to adapt in the future? And you also know if they're gritty or not, because we tend to steer on the side of getting people with grit. So that's kind of exactly what we do.
That's interesting. I read a book called Grit by Angela Duckworth recently. How do you measure that, and why is that important?
That's it. Yeah, I love Angela. I used to in my previous life also be like a behavioral scientist. So grit was a big thing.
You do a lot.
I actually worked for government. It was very interesting. We were trying to use behavioral science to guide people to change their behavior without introducing policy. After the last financial crisis, that was something a lot of governments were very interested in. But grit, why is that important? Grit basically measures your perseverance and your adaptability. So it measures whether or not you're willing to continue in the face of adversity, which I think is very important. Why is that important? Because for a company like yours, there'll be good news and there'll be good days and bad days, and things are fast moving. And you need to have a candidate that is able to adapt to those things and see the opportunity in things going bad. Because if they just get crushed by bad news, I don't think that's a very good, that's not really a good outcome for you. The perseverance or the focus is important because that allows you to identify what is important in your company. you talked a little bit about the goals and the metrics that this person would be working towards. It's really important that that candidate understands what is the one metric that they need to drive, and that's what they focus on. And last but not least, how do we measure it? So we took kind of the scale that she has and we adapted the questions to more behavioral based scenarios. So rather than being like, how ambitious are you? Rate on a scale of 1 to 5. We actually try and get the person to kind of do a challenge whereby they have certain word combinations and they have to guess as many words as they can. And then every 5 seconds, they're told that they can switch to a different word. And then they're also told, hey, but you still have 1,000 words left here. If they switch, it's a sign of the fact that they gave up kind of easily because there were still many options and they were given that option to leave. So that's another way, that's part of our product offering as well.
And so how do you work with companies like us where, we're about 40 people, we're growing at a pretty good rate, but I'm not sure I get it yet. So is it a subscription? Is it software that I use? And how do you source candidates? Like where do the candidates come from that maybe I couldn't find on my own?
Absolutely. So the way that we kind of work is we actually have 2 options as models, and actually we prefer in the moment now to kind of work on a hybrid of both, and I'll explain why that is. So the first one is that we source and vet, and the idea is that when we work with you, we basically talk to you, as we did today, about your role, and we try and understand what are the key elements of that goal. So you talked about lead generation, you want to drive leads. Based on that, what we do is we actually design this competition, this challenge. And the challenge is basically, we take exactly what you said, the main element of the role is, and we make that the competition. So in this case, it would be drive people to the website, get them to subscribe. Let's say that would be the challenge, and ideally on a budget of $0. Those are always the most interesting ones. So all candidates, same conditions, same timeline, do it. Usually they have about 3 days to make the creative, and then we host it for 1 day live on whichever platform is the one that you use most to advertise. So from your side, we work together, we design competition. Then we source the candidates, and the candidates are sourced based on these 3 different groups that we have. And the first group is kind of traditional people. So got the resume, got the job title. They're the ones that, a lot of companies are after, everyone wants to hire them. Then there's group 2, which is, we don't have the job title that matches what you're looking for, but what I do now as a job matches the skills that you're looking for. And we've kind of we've got these AI algorithms that have found that group 2 of people. And then we have our group 3 of people, and they're, for me, I think the most interesting ones, which are the people that don't look good at all on your CV. They've probably not done any real, they haven't done the official marketing experience in the sense that they maybe haven't run marketing in a company, but they've done marketing in some capacity. And those are the ones that we pick using Grit. And these 3 groups all enter into this competition. And the idea is that this challenge can give you an anonymous overview of all those people without looking what they look like. So you, as the client, what you get is a competition, a write-up of results that shows which of those candidates drove the most leads to your website, some insights also on marketing competitions, and hopefully a much more diverse and interesting set of candidates for your job.
Okay.
Would you say, Christina, that's kind of I don't want to say the end, but I'm also just looking in terms of time. You probably want to save a bit for feedback. So
exactly.
Michael, do you want to start as the person being pitched?
Absolutely. That was great overall. I was jotting down some notes on the side, but overall I was pretty impressed. I'm going to share, 1 or 2 things I liked, and then 1 or 2 areas I think you could improve or get better at, and then I'll pass it to the next person. But I think you did a great job even getting started with an upfront contract. So just kind of building the commitment with me or with the group around what is the goal for today. And so I thought that was a great place to start. It's something that I make sure I do on every sales call, make sure we know what is the objective for today. I think to make that even stronger, I'd probably build in a bit more of a specific agenda. And I wasn't sure as the prospect, where you were going to go next.
Yeah.
I'm also looking at, my other priorities. I've got a next call. Is this call going to last for 2 hours or half an hour? So how long do we have? What are you going to start with? What's next? And then here's what we're going to end with. And then if that works well, here's what a next step would be. And even starting off the conversation with that next step in mind, so I have some indication of what the process is. And then one of the first questions you asked, I wasn't even expecting it. You caught me off guard. What is the cost of not doing it? I bet you a few people wrote that down. That's like a black belt level question, I think. It was great. And I think there's a theme of open-ended questions, a lot of what and how questions. And then the other thing that I think you did really well is use buckets. And there are a few scenarios where you use buckets. For example, how are you recruiting? Are you looking to solve quality or time or both? And like using those as the buckets. And I think my last comment in terms of the product solution is just working to tighten that up a little bit. So helping me understand, and I think the upfront contract will aid in this, helping me understand what exactly we're going to go through. Every prospect is wondering what the price is and how we'll work together. And so I think starting off with some of those thoughts that I'm probably thinking about, and then maybe understanding if I want to go a little bit deeper and if I have the time for that. So I'll leave it there. Really good overall, and excited to hear what everyone else thinks.
Allan, who's going to be the bad cop? The off of mute bad cop.
Oh, the off of mute bad cop. No, I mean, so I think because I think you hit on the head, Michael, like a lot of what I thought you did really well. Like if this was recorded by Gong or Chorus, I think they would have given you a lot of compliments on how many questions you asked and the type of questions you asked, which was really smart. To piggyback on a couple things that you said, I think it would be smart to do a quick like elevator pitch of what you do at the start of the call. It's a little bit it's a little bit complex, so you could even hear it when you were going back and forth. Michael wanted to know what you were talking about and like why these questions were irrelevant. So if you can give like a quick little intro of what Lemons does, I think that'd be really helpful. One step further you could have taken when you were going around like how many leads you have is qualification rate. So asking Michael like, hey, how many leads do you get every single month? And like of those, how many actually become appointments? And if he says, hey, I get 1,000 leads and 10 turn into appointments, you've got a huge pain point that you can go back to and why that role is even more important than it currently is. And it gives you a little bit more to like anchor onto around money later on in the conversation. And then like the only other piece that I would talk about is like maybe like when it comes to hiring, like what does the decision-making process look like for them to hire that person, and what is the decision-making process for them to implement what you do?
Sorry, I'm having trouble.
Siri's yelling at me. And the decision-making process, I think especially for recruiting and hiring, is very complex. So making sure that Michael is not the only person you're going to be talking to during the call. But I wish my team would ask as many questions as you do, because my team doesn't do that, and it really annoys me. That's my end.
Thank you.
All right, Brooke, you're up next.
Yeah, I think I wrote down, I really appreciated the questions that you asked, and not that you asked questions, more so I appreciated the type of questions that you asked. I thought that they were astute and intuitive. And what I liked about it is that you were able to quickly capitalize on something that Michael said, rather than kind of have a pre-planned list in your mind. That said, I do think having, I call it minimally acceptable outcome and best possible outcome. And anytime I go into a call, my intention is that I want to visualize what those outcomes are going to be, because that sets the structure for me from the get-go. And then when I think about as a framework for you, is in writing. The whole idea is you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them, then you're going to tell them, and then you're going to tell them what you told them. And so I think if you can structure your sales pitches in that way, one, it's going to help you set an agenda in a fluid manner. It's also going to help you come up with a very concise elevator pitch. And in doing that, then you're going to let Michael really anchor into what you're saying and lead him down the path that you want him to lead. So, and then this also goes back to building a slide deck that supports the words you're saying. So I always like to, in slide decks, is I want to basically state the conclusion of what my audience, what I want them to come to. And so I think you can use that in your planning process for how you build your deck, as well as how you speak through your talk track. And so, but I think you did a really nice job of like mental jujitsuing your way through. And I think that's an incredible skill. So while you said you don't come from sales, my definition of sales is moving people from A to B. And we move people every day. And so you instinctively know how to do that. And that was apparent on the call today. And I really liked that. I thought there were some elements, and this may be in dialing your elevator pitch in. There were a few elements where I just felt like you wanted to get so much information in. And in a sales call, one of the things that when I work with teams is I try to help them pace themselves. And one of the ways that you can pace is that you know you've been successful when you get someone to agree and you've created agency for them to take your next call. Like that's a win. And oftentimes people don't see that as a win because we're so outcome and achievement oriented, but that's a great outcome. Like when somebody's so engaged that they want to talk to you next. So that might be part of your structuring is like, hey, it may be a couple meetings because I do have a complex product and there are a lot of decisions that need to be made. So let me map out the buyer journey and I'm going to map my sales process to what that looks like. So I just did a lot of talking, but thank you. You did a beautiful job. It was really fun to listen and I'm so excited to see your product come to market.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for all that feedback. Thanks.
Patrick, nobody's been the really mean one yet, so I'm guessing Patrick's going to be a meanie.
I'm not that mean. I'm really open with constructive criticism, but Christina, I will have to say that I am shocked actually for someone that hasn't have a lot of experience in sales, how smooth that was. I think I was really impressed with your ability to answer questions pretty confidently. I think what really impressed me was how you latched onto a certain follow-up question, right? So you asked Michael a question about this hire and why, he mentioned it was really important. And I think most junior sales reps would just kind of move on to the next question. But you stopped and said, well, why is it so important? And that's, again, something that I was really impressed with. I agree a lot with what Allan mentioned about maybe talking a little bit about conversion metrics and being able to tie it later to the money. And like maybe a deeper level question of that might have been, well, how many more leads do you expect a good demand gen to bring, could bring to, the organization? And then you can start to do that mental math of like, well, if you get a good hire and you can get 2x leads, that means how much new business, right? I also agree, I think it was Michael, you mentioned the upfront agreement and kind of tightening that up a little bit. Where I really see it was like being able to just lay out an agenda, right? And really give a reason for asking these questions to start, because you may have noticed Michael interrupted you halfway through your questions to say, what does your product do? And I think you were a little flustered because you weren't ready for it. But if you had a very, very upfront agenda and that was agreed to by Michael, he might have not interrupted you and waited to go through your full process before he interrupted. I think somewhere midway through the conversation, you mentioned, based on my experience when I speak with hiring managers, they usually tell me one or two things. I think that could have been really good in the beginning. Like if you started there, and then based on how Michael answered, then start to do the deeper level questions, and then you can really hit home and have that structure that I think Brooke was mentioning. And then I think the question of what is the cost of not making this higher, for me, that was really early in the conversation, and it's a good question to ask, but I think I would assume that everyone's going to make the hire, right? I think the question might be, what's the cost of making a bad hire? Because they're going to hire someone. They're going to find someone, eventually. And so, but, because, that's a tough question to answer. What's the cost of not making a hire? It's just assuming that they're not going to, right? But overall, again, I thought it was really, really great. But I don't know if you can see my notes, but they're like all over the place. But I'm just trying to, if I remember, I'll come back to it, but I appreciate it.
Take screenshots and send them to me. That way I can have them on file as well.
You get, I don't know, Amy, what you think. This is like the most organized group. Like nobody, I don't know if anybody's taking this many notes.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'd have to say I'm impressed, and what's funny is we all keyed on the same things, which is really good because it means that across the board you are solid. I mean, one of the cool things I like about you is, sales reps inherently have bad habits that we have learned through the years of battling it out in the sales trenches and learning from our mistakes. You're coming at it from a completely different angle, so you're far more analytical. You've kind of it seems like you've kind of approached it from a perspective of research first, which is brilliant. And you mentioned, I'm a data scientist and kind of your background. Don't ever lose that. Keep that in all of your scripts and your pitches, because that's very interesting. The behavioral science aspect of it, talk about that a little bit more, because in a way that builds a use case for you and Lemons. So definitely, and even in content that you create as you're rolling this out, that's the hook right there. Like, hey, I know how your brains work, and I know how all of these people that we're looking at and analyzing for your company, I know how their brains work. Yeah. And so by default, people are going to be drawn to you because of that. So don't lose that. That was really strong. Questions were on point. It's sometimes hard on the go to ask open-ended questions. So it felt like you definitely, I'm sure you probably practiced some of those, but it didn't feel like you had practiced them. They came out very naturally. So that was really good. I give you props for that, because that's hard. Even some of us that have been doing this a while, we tend to fall back on, yes and no questions to our detriment. But one of the things I'll say is I agree with the elevator pitch. Yeah. And you already know the pains that you can help solve for your customers. You even brought them up later in kind of like a bullet point flow. I'm trying to remember when it came, but you relisted the pains that you would solve. And that's really strong, circling back on that and reminding them, hey, we're going to solve these pains. But the overall flow of because I'm assuming this is like discovery call, right? Discovery / demo kind of call. So you've probably already either gotten them through in-mails or messaging, email, cold outbound calls, whatever the case may be. So you've done your elevator pitch at some point, or someone on your team has. But adding that right in the beginning is going to kind of, it's just going to organize the whole flow of this call. And ultimately you do your discovery, identify what pains matter to them. And then the rest of it is structured around that, sharing your background, tying it back into those specific pains that they're experiencing, and then get to the point of the call. Right. So Brooke mentioned and Michael mentioned upfront, kind of setting the stage for what you expect or what you'd hope to expect from this call. Like asking them if they're comfortable telling you if they would like to move forward with either a second phone call or maybe a more in-depth demo, or maybe you guys jump on whatever that may be for your product and kind of the way you stage that. But set that up front, get through your discovery, kind of throw in your use cases, your personality, tell your story a little bit, then get to the point of what you want to happen following this call. How are you going to work together? So explaining how you're sourcing your leads and all of that is great. But that might be even a little too much for an initial discovery call. You may want to get to, are you interested in talking more and kind of learning and discovering how we would go through this process together, how we would partner together is something I like to use a lot. Because they're, like, to Brooke's point, there may be 2 or 3 additional calls that come, little 15-minute calls here and there before you get to the actual close, because the solution is so involved. They're not just going to hand you your credit card or their credit card and say, yeah, let's do this. I trust you with my life. But that would be my main point of advice, is define, this is my script for my prospecting calls, my cold outbound. This is my kind of my flow for my discovery, which includes that initial, hey, just a reminder, right? Discovery questions, little bit of use case history on who you are and why what you're saying is relevant, then close it to the next step, right? So like Brooke said, A to B. And I think that if you practice that just at home, the flow will come, and it'll kind of click in your head, because you never want to feel like you're like what I'm doing right now, carrying on, right? Just give your advice and then be done with it. But awesome job. I was really impressed.
Well, I'll dovetail on a few people's feedback. Like, I think that initial, like, it felt a little bit, not awkward, but, I mean, I think, talking about the weather and all that's great, but I'm always in my mind, like, I think hopefully all of you, if I called you, we could talk about the weather, because we kind of know each other now. But, when you're talking to that prospect, so it's, there's already been that warm introduction. I still think you really need to get to that point really quickly, because it's this epic battle for everyone's time. So if you start kind of boring Michael right away, he might start to tune out, right? He'll be taking your call. So you want this cliffhanger, like, right out of the gate. And, you're a data person. So there's probably some really good, like, presumptive questions you could ask Michael right out of the gate. Like, you probably have had this issue when hiring before. And it draws him in. He's like, yeah. And then you probably have like 1 or 2. And the next thing you know, he's just like, man, she's knocked me out, man. Like, she's got these amazing data points that are true, that are super relevant to me. And he's just like, I want some more. Yeah. Like Amy said, like when Patrick was on, like, take them down this pain funnel, like bring them down this road that is painful, and then get into it. I mean, I think you have lots of great elements that Brooke and everybody were refining, like that middle piece, right? But like Amy was saying, we're assuming that this call was warm. It was a discovery. I think, if it was a cold call, I don't know if you would have got Michael to stay on. It was, like you need that cliffhanger right out of the gate. So I'll stop there, because I want to give you a chance to maybe ask us some questions. But, I was in the chat kind of trying to keep it a little bit structured, because sometimes we can all talk over each other. But I kind of just want to open it up now, let you ask us questions, and, see where you've got some feedback for us too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that a lot of the things that you guys said make a lot of sense. I think that it basically comes out of the fact that I don't feel very comfortable asking people for things because it's like, can you just see it and then just be like happy with it and do it? So I think for me, like, I know everyone that I talk to, they're like, you just have to ask, because you know what, we live in a world where time is like that, and you just have to do it, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. But like, when you maybe started your sales careers or throughout your time, like, how do you become comfortable with that tight agenda, and how do you frame that question in the beginning? Like, what you want to achieve at the end of the call, but how do you make it, I guess, so that it doesn't feel awkward? Or is it just like a question of practice? Like, what are the tactics that you use to get over that?
I've got a really good line, which would work really well for your personality and your brain, is how does that compare with your expectations?
Okay.
It's a really good transition, because it's very vague. Like, they don't really know where you're leading them next. Okay. But it gives them a chance to give you some valid feedback that can kind of guide your close and your ultimate ask, which is, whatever the next step is. It could be that you want their agreement to, move forward with the deal that day. But most likely it's going to be another call. And then, you're going to talk about your engagement and all of that. So how does that compare with your expectations? Then just shut up and let them talk. So that would be my first point of advice.
And Christina, I was going to share with you, one of the things is that I think there's this dirty little secret that people know what they want. Most people do not. In fact, I actually think it's why most people don't ask for help. Because in order to ask for help, you actually need to know what you want.
Yeah.
So if you can craft for yourself what you want, and you know why, right? So like one of the things that I kind of had as a common thread is I really wanted to know your why. Because if I know your why, then I can connect in with you. And when you know your why, you know what to ask. And then asking for anything becomes so much easier.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I know it's not a particular question. It's more of a mindset. But I do think like because you're clearly passionate about what you do. But when you distill your why about why you're doing this, it's going to be really easy for you to ask for anything. Okay. And people are going to want to give it to you because they're like, she knows what she wants. You get rewarded when you know what you want. And that is like general in anything you're doing, sales, finance, operations, it doesn't matter.
Do you think that you could just provide me with an example maybe about yourself so that I could just see a real life example and make it more comprehensible, if that's okay? Yeah,
let me think of a good one. So because of the type of business that I'm building, one of the things is I talk with a lot of brands. So cosmetic brands right now, skincare brands. And I very quickly get into why I'm building this business. I'm building this business because it solves a pain point for me. And here are the pain points that I have, as well as hundreds of women that I've spoken with. Oh, by the way, as a brand, you've been asked to be part of all of these ridiculous box solutions that don't have your best interests in mind. I'm actually going to be a brand extension using artificial intelligence to predict what somebody needs at their destination, which is not what they use at home. And so we can create so I know exactly what I'm asking for. And then when I ask for it, like I ask for them to give me lower than wholesale pricing. I get it 95% of the time.
Nice.
When I don't get it, I know I have not done my job.
Okay. So the why is it's literally it's you. It's why you are doing it. It's literally that. Okay, cool.
I'd also tell the story of the company, right? So for us specifically at Verse, like it started with the two guys who founded the company were real estate agents and found a pain in their business, and that's how it started and progressed. And so when you tell people the story of the company, you're telling them a story about why they should be invested in what we're doing and why we even started in the first place, and people are connected to that.
Yeah. Okay.
If I can add one thought on that, the second slide of the intro deck our sales team uses is a box with 4 or 5 quotes, which are the challenges that our customers tell us every day. We can't prove influencer marketing actually works. And the title on that slide is, here's what we hear every day, which is the problem that we're solving and why we exist, to Brooke's pain and to Brooke's point, sorry. And I think starting off with that why, here's why we exist, here's why we were founded 4 years ago to solve this problem. And we actually put little sound bites, helps to illustrate that.
Patrick, you found your notes.
So, Christina, I was going to answer your question about how you get comfortable asking some of these questions, right?
Yeah.
You said that you get uncomfortable. For me, personally, the easiest way to get comfortable asking these questions is just to ask permission first. So if you can ask for permission, but give them a carrot. Like, I'm going to ask you questions in order to give you this at the end.
Okay.
Right? Can I ask you a few questions to better understand, why we're here today, so that, maybe the last 10 minutes of my call, I can really tailor the presentation and what we offer towards exactly what you need.
I would suggest
you've gotten their permission, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you have the app masterclass or like to read, Chris Voss has a lot of great ways to learn how to ask questions with qualifiers around negotiation. Sorry, my phone's ringing, but I'd highly suggest doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to add to that, Christina, one of the things that because what you do again is kind of it's a brand new type of approach, right? So you're going to be educating the market a lot on that,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
which you should fully be prepared for multiple touch points or multiple
Okay.
calls or whatever. So your asks, your close, your close, right? Your ask at the end is going to get a little bit more succinct and to the point as you go along. But one of the questions that's really good when you're uncertain of what really the outcome of the call is going to be, like maybe they've been a little cryptic or maybe held back or a little reserved, is you can make statements like, I want to understand what next steps will make the most sense moving forward. Okay. It's a very, very comfortable question or your statement to make, but it sets the clear expectation that at the end of this or during this or at the end, you're going to discuss next steps of some sort. Okay. That clears the path for you to it almost, if they don't resist at the beginning when you throw that in there, like, I want to understand your business and your just what you guys are focused on right now, what's most important in hiring or whatever. So I can understand what next steps make the most sense for you guys moving forward. Because it may very well be that there's no need, or they're just not interested. You're going to find out a little bit more about some of the objections that are going to come up. How much does it cost? Oh, we don't have budget. And then you need to be ready and prepared to kind of, flip the script, so to speak, and go into what we call closing mode, right? But definitely set the tone at the beginning that you're gonna ask them for something at the end. If they stay on the call with you, they've already given you permission to ask them something at the end. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So have confidence in that. Okay. They're on the phone with you talking. They're answering your questions.
Yeah.
Just move forward with that.
Patrick,
I also don't.
Go ahead, Alan.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure like the Lemons product is gonna work for every single person.
Yes.
Right. And so I also use that at Verse too, because our product doesn't work for every single company. If you have no leads, then there's nothing we can do for you.
Yeah.
So one way how permission-based ask that is like, hey, I have some questions here to figure out if you're gonna make sense for us. Because what I don't want to do is spend an hour with you presenting our product, and at the end of the call, you being like, well, this is not going to work for me.
Yes.
Then people understand the framework behind it of like, okay, cool. I understand why this person is asking me these questions.
Yeah. Cool. I know that we're close to running time. I don't know if this is the way that you guys usually do it, but is it possible to like maybe come back in a couple of weeks and try this again once I've taken on board all this feedback? And
what we've definitely done, Christina, is I know Amy and Patrick and I have kept in touch with people one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can connect with all these folks on LinkedIn. And I'd be shocked if any of them said, no, we don't ever want to give you any more feedback. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you didn't like 5 on Friday, too bad.
Yeah, and to answer his question, yes, yeah. What I'd love to see is come back with your elevator pitch.
Yes.
And then we'll roll into discovery again. Because then maybe we can help you tune up the elevator pitch a little bit, and we'll just do a real like kind of snappy run through on discovery, and then we'll work on the close. So they're getting you more comfortable answering some of those questions that seem a little awkward. And I'll just end on this, right? You're not a sales rep, so use that, okay? Because people inherently are skeptical of sales reps. You're not one. Right? You just got a really cool technology and solution to a problem.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to use a little humor, like self-deprecating humor at the end when you're asking for something and saying things like, oh man, now this is the part I hate the most, and, use that to your benefit, man, because people are going to reciprocate in kind and saying, sales calls or whatever. Definitely don't be afraid to show them that like this is a little outside my comfort zone. I'm very smart, I'm brilliant, but now I gotta do my job, and I do that all the time. Like I'm a horrible sales rep, and people like it does help sometimes because it breaks down the walls a little bit. And
I think it's interesting that you say that, like, because I think that when you actually do see a salesperson, you're like, there's something that they just know how to do, and you're like, it's really magical. I think. I
think Patrick wanted to jump in. Yeah.
There was one note that I forgot to mention when I was giving feedback, and I think it's really important. It's what I think we might have missed this entire role play is really you asking Michael, what is his involvement in the hiring process? I wasn't really sure. I don't know. Yeah. And, you know, when we're talking about building rapport, one of my mentors, one of the best things he's ever said to me is like, building rapport is not talking about, you know, the college that you went to or the same town that you grew up on. It's really just asking really good questions. Yeah. So if you don't know Michael's role in the hiring process, you could be asking questions that are not relevant at all to him, and he's building his interest. So kind of getting that information of like what he cares about specifically is going to be helpful. So maybe I think that's a good place to start. And also the Medic guys, I did a training with Jack. I think he's the creator of Medic a while back, and he said something that was really profound to me that I'm still working on myself, which is we focus so much on paying. Start with what's working, what they like, and then after they've told you what they like, they're probably more willing to tell you what's wrong after they tell you what they're proud of. So that's kind of my closing thoughts. But really good stuff, Christina.
Well, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate all of that. I have like 4 pages of notes, so that's great.
Not easy to do this.
Yeah. Thanks for being brave to come on too. I mean, Francois and I have sat through quite a few of these, and I will say, for someone that has no sales background, you were phenomenal. There have been people on here that have been at this a while, and we were like, wait a second, what problem do you solve for your customer? So it does.
So it could be even worse. Okay.
Yeah, you were good. You've ramped it up quite a bit. You've got a, you got a good head start.
Okay, cool. But I can't be in the same position in a year's time. That's definitely true. Or maybe let's say a month. Yeah.
Part of being a founder is constantly coming up with hypotheses and trying to validate and invalidate them. Yeah. So, I mean, all you can be is what you are right now. And like confidence and goes a long way. Yes. You've got a lot to bring to the table right now. Like, go forth, trip, fall on your face. Like, who cares? You can look like a fool all day long as long as you're true to your mission.
Exactly. And you're collecting those validated learnings.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
You're going to be great.
Okay, I know everybody gave an hour of their time, and so I'm super grateful for everybody for joining. Super fun. Have a great Friday, guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.